What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's have a little chitty chat. A little chitty chat. A little chitty chat, okay? So, Kenya finally dropped her confessionals video, and I want to talk about it. But before we get into it, happy Resurrection Sunday for all my church goers, even the ones that with the sunrise service, okay? For the regulars, happy Easter. If you don't celebrate, Jesus and all of that, I hope you're having a good day. And for my Blazers, all right, happy 420, okay? Blaze responsibly, all right? But let's get into this video. Let's chat about it. I'm happy that Kenya finally put this video out because I feel like she was losing trust from people, me being one of them, okay? I'm not a part of Team Twirl. I told y'all I'm Twirl adjacent. There's been seasons I've loved Kenya, seasons I couldn't stand the lady, okay? And so I'm not a part of Team Twirl. But in this moment, with this whole entire situation, I'm in the middle. But I'm leaning more over to Kenya's side, you know what I mean? And pretty much Kenya was frustrating me because you set expectations and you did not meet them. Now, while I'm talking about this video, I'll let you guys know I didn't take a lot of notes because while I was listening to the audio of Kenya, I was like cleaning my room and in my bathroom. But I was frustrated with Kenya. I talked about this in my latest The Drama video where I said like Kenya playing in our faces and she pissing me off. Because you set these expectations. You were supposed to come to us on last Tuesday or maybe the Tuesday after last. Yeah, I think Tuesday after, and you didn't. And I was like, girl, which I wasn't really that mad that she didn't come to us on Tuesday because I did not want Kenya to do a live. I said, there's too much that can happen during a live, and this situation is too serious for you to be doing a live where you can slip up and say something that's going to get you in even more trouble. So I'm happy that somebody probably tapped her on her shoulder and was like, girl, don't do that. Don't do that. Maybe it was Candy. Maybe it was somebody else who's a YouTuber that's a friend of hers that reached out to her and was like, that is not a good idea. And I'm happy that they did that. So then I think it was Wednesday, she dropped that promotional with Kendrick Lamar's halftime like opener over it, his song for that thing. And I was like, okay, this is nice. It's giving that you're probably going to post an edited video, which I think that's your best bet because Kenya pretty much said like, everybody send me your questions. And I'm like, more than likely, everybody's going to be asking roughly the same questions over and over. So I was like, that would be better to do it edited video. But she was supposed to premiere that video on Good Friday at 8 p.m. People were waiting in the chat. And then when she dropped a minute and 50-second like trailer, I said, oh girl, you pissing me off. And I wasn't even looking at the video. Like I didn't really care to watch the confessionals video because I felt like they were going to put all the good parts on, Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. So I said, there's no point for me to watch the YouTube video. But I was like, she just posted a trailer, and then I didn't like the trailer because the trailer felt ominous, and I'm like, Kenya, the energy around this situation is already dark. Don't make it darker. She even did that dramatization of her doing a 911 call that I don't believe is real, to be honest, because they live in Georgia. As much stuff from Georgia that gets leaked, if Kenya genuinely called 911, the audio for that would have been leaked because that's public record. Somebody would have alerted one of the blogs that Kenya called 911 because you have to say who you are on the phone. Like, what's your name? Kenya Moore. And she probably would have said, my name is Kenya Moore. Okay. So I was like, Kenya, you already kind of starting off bad in my opinion, because like I said, the situation's already dark. People are pissed off at you. People are pissed off at Brit. They're pissed off at Andy, Bravo, production. It's like, you need to use this opportunity to shift the narrative. So please shift it. Okay. And I was just like, I'm losing faith, girl. I'm losing faith because Kenya was supposed to pop out and show it, That's what you were supposed to do on Friday, and you didn't do that. So when I saw that she finally posted the video on Saturday, I was just like, is it worth it? Is this going to be worth it? A lot of people online said it was. And I will say, watching the first 10 minutes, I said, okay, I see what we're doing here. The energy does seem a little lighter. It's moderate, which I feel is better than just full-blown darkness, But I'm like, this might need to be the last time Kenya talks about this. If Kenya was really going to do like my confessions, I might go. I was about the song just popped. Just on my confession. The beat popped into my head when I said it. But I'm just saying, if she really wanted to do a series, she should have started from episode 1 and then ended with episode 5, and then took her time to pivot to something else. Now that you have this one video, I would not talk about this anymore. Let things play out. That's how I feel. Let them play out, because right now people ain't feeling Brit, okay? Don't nobody really see it for her, just a select few. And I already feel like people feel how they want to feel about you. Like, I think this video was for Team Twirl and Twirl adjacent, which that's the crew I'm in, okay? Because I feel like Kenya's diehard people, they in the trenches. They under people's YouTube videos. They on Twitter. They on Instagram. They on TikTok. They in the trenches fighting for their girl. And then you have the people that are in the middle, which that's where I feel like I am, that are on Kenya's side for the most part, but they feel like she was wrong and Brit was wrong. And the way that she went about it was not a good look. And ultimately, you did this to yourself, in my opinion. And then you do have people who are Team Brit, and then you have people that just hate Kenya and are not Team Brit or Team Kenya. And I don't think posting these confessional videos is going to change anybody's opinion. I think people feel how they want to feel right now, and you should just say your piece with this video and then call it a day, and then start pivoting your content for your salon. You spent all that money, you spent $400,000. Now use your YouTube to promote your business, now that you have everybody's eyes on you right about now. Okay, that was my initial thoughts when I was watching the first 10 minutes of the actual video. But let's get into the first segment. Is called More Receipts. Kenya says before she gets into this segment that one of her favorite lyrics right now is from Kendrick Lamar, and the lyric goes, "They try to rig the game, but they can't fake the influence." And I felt like that was Kenya's way of taking a shot at production, pretty much saying that y'all tried to play with me, y'all chose her, but yet the people still want me to be there. And I think that's what she meant by this was one of her favorite lyrics. She also was like, girl, my influence is still around on that show because y'all still talking about it and I'm not even there, which is true. So she also showed the tweets. I talked about the tweets that she liked, that she put in her promo, in her promo for this video. If you want to know what the tweets say, please check out my Spicy Corner video. I'll put the link in the description box below. So first up, Kenya addresses Portia's comment where she said that someone gave Kenya that information. Portia said on her YouTube channel that one of the housewives that are still on the show gave Kenya that information. Kenya basically says that's a lie. She says she didn't get any information from anybody on the show. The two people that were being implicated were Angela and Drew. And another person was Ming Lee, but Ming Lee was auditioning to be on the show, and she's cool with Kenya, but she is not a part of the show. And Kenya was like, neither one of those people gave me any information. She said the people that she had investigating found everything on public adult sites. She was like, all of that information was online. So she was like, no, did not give me that information. Okay. She was like, Drew didn't give me that information. She also said Ming Lee didn't give me that information. She was like, I know people think Ming gave me this information because Ming and Brit have a past, but she was like, Ming didn't give me any of it. So I was like, okay, so she cleared Ming, she cleared Drew. I also think she cleared Angela, because in my mind, I didn't get why people were saying maybe Angela gave that information, but I'm like, Angela don't know that lady. Angela don't know that lady. Drew don't know that lady. Like, it would make sense why people implicated Ming Lee, but Ming Lee was like, girl, if I posted anything about you, it would have been from 2011 because we was at that party together, girl, and I've kept every single phone from 2011, and I've never released anything on those phones. Honestly, and it was a conspiracy theory about Drew, because a lot of people are like, why are people implicating Drew? And it's because Ming Lee dates Ty. And I think almost 2 summers ago, there was a situation where Ty and Drew were caught in the club hanging. Why don't we even say caught club? They were in the club hanging out. And people were going around speculating whether Drew and Ty were dating. And because Mimi posted a picture of Drew and Ty in her Insta story, Mimi from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, with Ice Spice's song, and it was the lyrics, "That nigga's a munch," on the that's the part of the song that she kept playing. And I was like, oh, so a lot of people thought that maybe Ty was cheating on Mimi with Drew. So some people had a conspiracy theory in their mind that Ming Lee gave the information to Ty, and then Ty sent the information to Drew, and then Drew gave the information to Kenya. So I think that's why Kenya was like, Drew didn't give me this, Ming Lee didn't give me none of this information either. And the reason why people assume that Ming Lee gave Kenya that information is because Ming Lee dated Rick Ross before Rick Ross dated Brit Eady. So Brit was after Ming Lee. Brit dated Rick Ross after Ming Lee, pretty much. So it continued on, and Kenya basically says that she actually engaged with an attorney who advised her about the situation, about showing those images or video of Brit, saying that like she wanted to know if she did engage in revenge PORN, and the person said no, technically, like she was like, she talked to an attorney, they talked to her about federal laws and local laws and the Georgia law. And she was just like, she didn't violate any of that. Now, I did look up, did she? And it is saying on this website, let me find it, legalvoice.org, it says, yes, sharing or publicizing intimate images without your consent is against both civil and criminal law. So even though they were online, it's still like, I think that's why I think people keep saying it's revenge P. Because even though these were online, they were on adult sites, she uploaded those videos, she uploaded that content, you still showed it without her consent. But I feel like if you want, that's when you would have to have a good attorney to argue semantics, because a lot of people feel like, well, girl, if you had them uploaded onto an adult website, then you wanted people to see them. So technically you already consented to people seeing that information because you put it on there for people to consume that image or the videos of you in that way. So I feel like you would be arguing semantics if Brit tried to take this to court, in my opinion. But that's what legalvoice.org says. So it continues with Kenya saying she didn't engage in that type of stuff. She also talks about how she wasn't right. She says she was wrong. She actually was like, you know what? I was wrong for showing this stuff at my beautiful salon that I paid so much money for, that I put a lot of work into. She was like, I was wrong for doing it there, and I was also wrong for sharing those pictures. Some people felt like that wasn't good enough, but I feel like y'all want her to apologize to Brit. But I would say that Brit's apology wasn't good enough. She went around the world and talking to everybody saying, I want Kenya to know that I would never harm her, Kenya. And even when she tried to apologize to Kenya in her salon, that to me was a half-hearted apology, because you think just shoving flowers at my face with a crappy note was good enough for you threatening my safety? Like, I would have taken her apology a lot. I would have given her credit for her apology if she actually reached out to Kenya and said, hey, can we have a sit down and have a conversation? I was totally out of line for what I said to you. I got worked up. You triggered me when you called me a peasant. I don't like when people belittle me. And that's where I went to. It wasn't right, and I was wrong for that. But the fact that you think just shoving, flowers in my face and saying I'm sorry was going to suffice, that to me wasn't a good enough apology. Then you have Brit going on press tour saying that Kenya needs to humble herself to her. And I'm like, that doesn't make it any better either. Why would I want to apologize to somebody that says I need to humble myself to them? And I didn't start this issue between us. I took it far. I took it to hell with that person, but I didn't start this. And I think that's what's frustrating for a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people don't really see it for Brit, is because you want Kenya to give you something that I don't think you're willing to give her. Because again, that apology wasn't real. Because if it was real, you wouldn't have got on the internet during that time lying. Like, you jumped, that's the other part that's crazy. You jumped on the internet saying that you were being hazed and targeted, and you never were in possession of any weapon whatsoever, and you never threatened anybody, only for you to do that. And then we want to give a weak apology. Your girl missed me with that. The conversation continues. And Kenya reiterates again that she was wrong, but she did not break the law. She then starts talking about the clips that have been resurfacing, especially the one with her and Brandon in her closet during season 6, where she pulls out her firearm and she's like, do I need to pack a little heat for me while I'm with the girls? And do
I need to pack some heat?
You got a piece of steel in there?
Because if things get out of hand,
what do you have here?
I might just have to bring out my firearm.
Oh, that's my cue. I love you, Didn't know you had that kind of in the closet.
Now, if a donkey is feeling froggy and they want to leave, they can leave all the way to the emergency room. Because they just got shot in the ass. Who will win, a taser gun or a real gun?
A lot of people feel like, well, Kenya did the same thing towards Phaedra. Did the same thing towards Phaedra that Brit did to her. And like Kenya says, that's apple to oranges. And I agree with that because Kenya was at her house. She was by herself. Well, not by herself, but she was there with Brandon. She didn't threaten Phaedra directly. She wasn't keeping that same energy when she met with Phaedra, and Phaedra never knew about the threat. And that was all in reference to season 5's reunion when Phaedra was sitting on that reunion stage with a taser. And Phaedra had that taser for Kenya because Kenya threatened to punch her teeth down her throat and she didn't care if she was pregnant. And people were mad at Kenya for that, but I'm also of the belief that even if you are pregnant, it is your responsibility to keep yourself and the person that's growing inside you safe. Not everybody has to care about you being pregnant. Should people care? To a certain extent, yeah, but they don't have to. So people trying to use that argument doesn't work for me. If you're going to
Twirl for you, baby. Another promotion. Sit your ass down. That's another promotion. Twirl. Thank you for that moment of performance. Thank you.
a clip of Kenya being in her closet with Brandon, I would respect your argument more if you put that in context. People keep putting it out of context, where in that full clip, Kenya even says, what's worse, a stun gun or a real one? And that was in reference to Phaedra having a stun gun the season prior at the house. Like, not the house, but at the reunion. So I'm just like, y'all are trying to make this work, but it weakens your argument when you start to look at the actual details, in my opinion. So she was like, that's apples to oranges. As it continues, she starts talking about, or she's asked a question about like her first interaction with the ladies, with Brit. And basically Kenya was like, girl, the whole ring situation was a misunderstanding. She was like, I didn't know the girl. When I asked her about the ring, her responses towards me were confusing. And she was like, I feel like people know when I'm being shady. Like, they call me the shade assassin. I feel like the fans know when I'm being shady, and I wasn't being shady. She was like, I was actually really excited to be back for season 16. She was like, you know, I'm like one of the last standing OGs. You're not an OG, Kenya. You're a veteran. OG means you should have been here season 1 and you didn't come till season 5. I hate when the girls do that. You are a veteran. Doesn't make what you give to the show any less important, but you're not an OG, my good ma'am. Okay? So, but she was like, I've been doing this show for 13 to 12 years. Like, I was excited. She was just like, I wanted to come into this show being mother. You know, I didn't want to mother the girls, but I wanted to be mother. Basically saying that she didn't want to really have to be in the mix with the girls like that. She was like, I wanted to have my fun here or there, throw shade, get a girl together if she tried me. But all in all, I wanted to be there to support the girls. Like, I've been there, done this for this long. Like, I didn't really want to be in the mix with them in that capacity. So she was like, it was really taking her aback that Brit had an issue with her, because she was like, at the end of the day, I don't know that lady. She was like, I don't know. She was like, I felt like I was being very kind, very like caring towards everybody. She was just like, it was throwing me off. She was like, when she came to me about not hugging her the first time, I was like, okay, girl, I don't really hug everybody. She was like, I'm not really a hugger, because she was like, I do think energy transfers. She was like, if people meet me out in the streets, I don't really hug them. Like, I may say hi to you, say hello, you know, but I don't really get down with the hugging. But she was like, I made a note of that. She was like, so the next time I saw her, she was like, I made sure I greeted her properly. You know, I called her a Balmain Barbie, and it was very nice. She was like, the second time when we were at the bank, I hugged her. And she was like, I didn't hug her properly, but I was just like, I didn't want to get makeup on you. She was like, I went out my way to like make her feel comfortable. So basically, Kenya is like, I didn't do nothing to this girl. She was like, I didn't say anything to her. I don't know her to have an issue with her. When you ask her what's up, she can't tell y'all what's up or what I did, because I did not do anything. Kenya also brings up, I think what Portia said was true when they had that sit down, that some people speculate that sit down that we saw of Portia and Brit was filmed right like weeks after the situation with Kenya and what happened at the hair spa. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. You know, they film so much and they film things out of sequence that could be true. But like Portia said, like, you got a different Kenya. And Kenya basically says she feels like what happened was that Brit oversold herself to production, saying that, you know, she was going to be the new villain. She was going to come in and get at Kenya and do this and do that, have this crazy personality, only for her to be actually exceptionally boring and very dull. She was like, the other two newbies were giving it to us. Kelly was interesting. Angela was interesting. We know Shamia, so that was kind of a new thing for us, but we already kind of, for the most part, people like Shamia. And she was just like, I think Brit started to feel the heat of like trying to compete with everybody else and actually deliver what she said she was going to give. And Kenya was just like, she just wasn't that girl. Like, she didn't have the designer clothes on. Her husband ain't really, like, he boring, you know, he not really giving us a personality. And then here it comes us at the bank. And she said she felt like Brit was looking for a moment, and that's what happened. She felt like, you know what, this is going to be my time to produce. We're 3 weeks into filming. Let me show them why they picked me. And this is what happened. So I thought that was an interesting perspective from Kenya, pretty much saying that Brit thought she had to do something because they were 3 weeks into filming and she ain't really that interesting. And when you think about it, if you put all the newbies up, like line them all up, Brit is the weakest link. Like, she doesn't really give a lot in group scenes, and her personal story compared to the rest of them is not that great. If you think about it, like, all Brit has talked about is, you know, unfortunately her dad passing away, her having issues with her sisters, and then her and her husband trying to find a new house. That's it. We ain't heard nothing else. And her talk about Kenya in that ring comment. But then when you look at, let's say, Shamia is wealthy. Her husband, it seems like a nice guy. She got 2 beautiful kids. One has special needs, which she can connect with an audience of parents that have to deal with a child with special needs. She's trying to start her music career. Her relationship with Portia is kind of up and down. She got into it with Angela. She threw that lavish birthday party for her 40th birthday that a bunch of people were invited to. What else is, like, she got stuff going on. Like, Shamia has stuff going on. Then when you think about Angela got Charles. He mouthy AF. You got her daughter, 24, eloping and not telling the lady who she getting married to. The girl has issues. The daughter has issues with the grandmother and the aunt. Charles has, you know, well, I bet you Charles will say he ain't got no issues with nobody. They got issues with him. But Charles not getting along with her mom and her sister. You have Angela wanting to get remarried, doing her vow renewal. You also have her showing us her renovation business. She got into it with Shamia. Then she getting into it with Brooke. Like, she showed why she should be there, as well as, what's her name? Angela be asking the right questions. Angela is kind of like, I won't call her the charade of the group yet because we haven't really seen her be a bone carrier, but she is pushing the story along. That the whole questioning that she did with Drew and Portia at Shamia's house about their divorces, and then when she clocked Brit at the table, I think both Shamia and Angela have proved why they were casted for this show. Then you have Kelly. Kelly got into it with Portia. Kelly's first introduction to us is her throwing her 17-year-old daughter a tea party, birthday party, and then giving her 17 different designer bags. Okay, she has the Balmain event. We're getting more information about how her 3 kids by her ex-husband have a genetic disorder, brittle bone disease. So she's doing a charity there. I said she got into a Portia, brittle bone disease. Her daughter, she's opening up a location for her Nana Chicken and Waffles. Every time she talks about that ex-husband, she dropping new lore. Then she does the lemon squeeze. Like, we've gotten 2 events out of Kelly. We've gotten 1 event out of Angela and 1 event out of Shamia. Brit ain't giving us nothing. like so when you think about it, what Kenya is saying is right. Like, girl, out of all the newbies, you do come off dull. You do kind of come off boring. Like, I agree that maybe Brit did feel like she needed to do something in order to prove to production why she was there. But ultimately, it backfired the same way Kenya doing what she did backfired on her. And I just feel like Brit is somebody that peaked in high school because her most notable like career, like most notable marks of her career of being a video vixen was in high school. I think that's why she's like stuck there. Like, if you think about it, the only thing that's on Brit's IMDb is her being in Lottery Ticket. There's nothing about her being a part of music videos, but Reddit said that, you know, she was in the old video for Sierra. That was in 2004, and she was like 17 years old. Then she did I'm So Icy by Gucci and Jeezy. She was 18. She did I'm in Love with a Stripper by T-Pain. She was 18. And then the TikTok found that she was in Kiss Me Through the Phone by Soulja Boy, Music Soul Child, So Beautiful, and Pretty Wings by Maxwell. And she was like in her early 20s, like I think like 20, between the ages like 20 and like 22. And then the last notable thing she did was Lottery Ticket, and she was 23 at that time. There's nothing else that's there. And I think for her, that was like the highlight of her life. And I also feel like the fact that in the past couple of episodes for the show, she has referenced, you know, the girls hating on her in high school, how her sister had to beat the girls up, how she's so sick of people hating on her. They always used to hate on her back in school. I really do think she's stuck there. And I feel like Brit has her pretty girl syndrome, where it's like, you don't have that much self-esteem and it's only in your looks. Like, if people don't off rip like you, you internalize that as like, well, they only hate me because I'm pretty. When it's like, no, maybe they just don't like your personality. I'm not saying people probably weren't jealous of Brit because, girl, I bet you a few people would have been jealous of Brit if, like, I mean, dang, you are with Sierra, Gucci, and Jeezy and T-Pain during their prime. During their prime? Yeah. I know a couple of people that would have been jealous of you. I know a couple of people that would have been jealous of you. So I'm not negating that, but it just feels like, girl, you're still stuck there. And because, like, you are still stuck there. And you need to work on putting your self-esteem and your self-worth into you and not your looks. Because you can definitely tell that's how you view yourself, Miss Mamas. So Kenya brings up how she doesn't understand why people get on reality TV and they have skeletons in their closet. And she doesn't understand how you have skeletons in your closet, but you don't expect people to pull those things out on you when you do them dirty. She also brings up how she's like, well, girl, you even said it yourself that you had to scrub the internet clean. And Kenya was like, well, you got some missing in the rafters and some dust over there. And I was like, that kind of gives credibility to what Kenya has been saying, that she has found those things online because you had the internet scrub. But we all know once you put something out there, you can't get it off the internet. Like, you could scrub it, but that don't mean that it's still not out there. Like, someone is always going to take a screenshot or download something of you. Or they'll just change the name to the video, especially if it's on one of them adult sites, and you just won't be tagged in it. So Kenya starts talking about how she's just like, this whole situation is just crazy to her at this point. She's just like, it's insane for people to get on reality TV and not think people ain't gonna pull your cards, okay? So she then talks about more accountability, where she speaks about how people keep saying that she hasn't taken accountability, but she's like, I have. That's why I went on Tamron Hall. And she plays this audio where she basically says that, like, I went on Tamron Hall because I knew what I did was wrong. She was like, it was a lapse in judgment. I shouldn't have done it at my shop or my salon. Like, I am completely sorry to Brit. And she actually said to Brittany, she said to Brittany and to my castmates and to the fans, like, I was wrong, and I take full accountability for my actions. She also brings up the whole Kim Fields things because a lot of people bring up, you know, her pulling Kim Fields' chair off and under her. And Kenya said that's one regret that she has about the show. And she was like, she apologized on Watch What Happens Live when Andy asked her, do you have any regrets when it comes to the show? And she said what she did to Kim Fields. So she's just like, I don't know where y'all forget that I haven't apologized for that. She's like, you know, I shouldn't have did that. Kim Fields is a class act. And she also goes on to say, if Kim Fields really had an issue with me, I don't think that she would have allowed me on The Upshaws, which is on Netflix, which is Kim Fields' show that I think she like co-directs and also stars in. So she was like, I don't think she would allow me to be on that show if she still had issues with me. And that situation happened 6 to 7 years ago. But it is what it is. She then does like a commercial break where she's, you know, hawking her Kenya Moore Edges products. That's what I want her to do. Like I said earlier on in the video, pivot your content to something else, okay? Let's start talking about your products. Let's start talking about your business. She even showed pictures of herself shampooing and washing clients' hair. Like, I'm like, okay, this is what we need to see, Kenya. Let's not be all about Real Housewives of Atlanta. Don't pigeonhole yourself there. So then she goes on to do even more receipts where she talks about producers. So the person ends up asking her, why, if you were, it says, why didn't you go to the producers if you were afraid? Kenya ends up saying she did go to the producers. She was like, I did go to the producers. She also said that we didn't even see the full scope of what really happened between her and Brit. She said that it was a way more intense than what was shown, that Brit was acting very belligerent and erratic. She said that she went to production, and I think she said the showrunner at the time, to tell them that she was uncomfortable and that Brit was doing too much, and nobody didn't take it seriously. She also said that they edit out what Brit said, because Brit basically says, that's why I have a pistol for bees like you. So she was just like, she said it, they edited it out, but she said that towards me. And so Kenya said after that, that's when she went to the showrunner and production to tell them, like, why is it okay for this person to be around, for her to threaten me, to basically threaten my life? I guess they didn't think it was that deep because it was two black people fighting, because that's what it's kind of given. Even though Kenya, use the example, like, if this situation were to happen to like Kyle or Teresa, like, do you think production would stand for it? I think they're ran by two totally different production companies. But she was like, Kenya's like, that's just a question. Like, do you think they would stand for it? And the answer is no. They wouldn't. But I feel like with this production, they probably thought it was okay that y'all were just arguing back and forth, even though I do believe Kenya when she said that a lot more happened than we saw. She said Brit did say the statement, that's why I keep a pistol for BITCHs like you. She was like, they edited it out, but she did say that. And she goes on to say that, like, she did talk to an executive producer, but nobody took, like, her feelings or how she felt into consideration. I guess they just felt like y'all were both arguing, and that's what happens because y'all are in Atlanta. Because I don't feel like you could do this with Potomac. Even though Potomac had that fight during season 5, or that assault during season 5, I don't think that you could get on that that franchise and threaten somebody in the way that Brit did and think that you wouldn't lose your job. So I don't know. I don't know. I just feel like I just wish Kenya was smarter about this situation, because it's clear as day that this production company don't really see it for Kenya. And I don't even think Kenya was supposed to come back. I've heard online, and this is just people, the rumblers online, that a lot of people said that Kenya and Portia weren't even supposed to be back. Like, this was supposed to be a total reboot like they did for New York, but everybody freaked out when B. Scott posted that article that they were going to revamp the entire show. And so they decided to bring people back, but they wasn't sure if they were going to bring Kenya back, especially after Candy left. This is all alleged, but this is what people have been saying online. So it was kind of like Kenya was already like on unstable ground. And I feel like, unfortunately, her doing what she did made it easier for them to push her out. And shouts out to Don Juan. Don Juan did a YouTube video. He has a YouTube channel where he expressed his opinion about this whole entire situation. And he basically says he does not believe that they let go of Kenya for Brit's safety or her feelings. He said ultimately they let Brit go because she is probably cheaper than Kenya, and that's what it boils down to. If I can get the same ratings with you being here and pay you less, then that's probably why they kept her and let Kenya go. Also, he was also somebody else that said that Brit, from what he heard, probably lawyered up, and Kenya was like a liability at that point. So she continues on talking about how she felt like they tried to rig the game against Kenya, basically production, saying that there was never any mention of a weapon or Kenya was never threatened for what happened. at the vault. And so she was calling production out there because there were a bunch of articles that said that Kenya was never threatened, that Brit was never in possession of any weapon. And she was like, that's messed up for y'all to say that, and then you show that I was telling the truth. So she was like, and also, how are y'all sure that she didn't have a weapon? Because this is the same person that said that she keep her, you know what, on her at all times, and she plays the clip that everybody's been playing of Brit being on this podcast called, I think, Rich and Unemployed, where she's like, I always keep that thing on me, you know, whether I'm at the gas station with my husband, I'm always strapped. So it's like, so how do y'all know she doesn't have a weapon on her? Because she's talking about Brit being on Watch What Happens Live, saying that she was never in possession of any weapon. And it's like, girl, can we really believe you? Because you are a liar. You do lie. So it continues on where she basically said that Brit basically got away with making terroristic threats against her. And she was like, it's not okay. She was like, honestly, it just feels like she's being disrespected. She was like, she's giving this like company, this show, 13 years of her life only for them to do her this way. Like, you just don't be mentioning having a weapon unless you pretty much use it. She also says, like, where I'm from, this is what we would have did. But then they basically show Kenya talking, and she was like, and if it's too much, y'all can edit it out. Then they flash on the screen, it was in fact too much, so we didn't edit it in there. She basically just says, like, girl, I never made you a target. Ultimately, you made me the target because I didn't do anything to you. So it's time for the questions posed by Kenya's fans. And one question says this: do you feel that your retaliation allowed the new girl to trick you off your spot? And Kenya basically said, there was no spot for her to trick me out of. Like, I always had a peach. She didn't snatch my peach. But I think what people are trying to say, girl, you basically allowed her to get you out of character so badly, or have you in character where you turned on your villain hat to 10,000 that it backfired and you're no longer a part of the show, which is her tricking you out your spot. Because there was definitely different ways to handle this, Kenya. Honestly, if I was Kenya should have pulled a Uber. The way Bryn played in Uber's face when they were in Puerto Rico, Kenya should have started crying. She should have started making herself cry at that table or in the car with Shamia and Portia, basically saying, girl, I feel scared for my life. And then follow suit, girl. If you was going to do it, you should have Karen'd all the way out. You should have put on them white woman tears. So she said they didn't trick her out her spot. The other one is, do you feel like Cynthia threw you under the bus and is Team Brit? And then Kenya says, I'm not talking about Cynthia. So they're definitely not in a good place, okay? And I think as the season continues, I think it might get worse, especially if Cynthia starts to get real close to Brit. The other one is, how much do you make a season? And Kenya was like, I don't like talking about my money, or like, that's tacky. We can talk about other people's money. But then she also says, they say my net worth is $800,000. She was like, I have cars that are worth that much. She was like, my house is $3 million. Why would my net worth be lower than my house? I said, well, she got a point there. Another one was, will you be at the reunion? Kenya basically says she was invited to the reunion in the beginning, but then she got uninvited. I don't know if this is her playing with words, because of course she would be invited to the reunion if she was still on the show. But then if she got, fired or suspended, then they would definitely disinvite her. But I also feel like her throwing this out there is important because people want to see Kenya on the reunion. I know I do, because if y'all are going to keep talking about this situation, then she better be on that reunion. Or even if they don't talk about this situation as the series continues, the first 6 episodes have been about Kenya. So I need them to allow that lady to, I don't know, zoom in or be on a different stage. But she just felt like, this was disrespectful. She was like, I've given this show, like I said, all of my good years, and this is how y'all are doing me. And you can tell that Kenya feels disrespected. She feels like they're trying to erase her. She was like, the fact that she didn't get a cast photo or a confessional really bothers her. And she was like, it feels like it's unfair, pretty much. Another question was, do you think there's hypocrisy in the Bravo network of how people are treated compared to you. And she brings up New Jersey, how Danielle and Jennifer got into that fight and Danielle hit Jennifer upside the head with the cup. And also she talks about how the the Husbros were passing around Danielle's sex tape when they were at that poker game, and Danielle was already dealing with like a revenge like lawsuit situation, and she's like, they all did these things and still were able to keep their job, and here I am, and I'm not allowed the opportunity to say my piece. I mean, there is some inconsistencies with Bravo. But I also feel like, Kenya, you got to be smart. You know they take it to the nth degree with you. I don't know if it's because you're black. I don't know if it's because nobody like you down at that production company, but they always punish you harsh. Like, your punishments are always harsh. When she wore the Indian costume, which was disrespectful, they basically had Kenya doing voiceovers, okay? But we saw Monique in the same Indian costume one season, and she was able to be in full regalia at that Indian themed party. Then you have this situation, like I said, with the men and the revenge P with Danielle, and like they're allowed to still film and she's not. It's like you have Michael Darby and his situation. She brings up what happened on Vanderpump's Rules with like Scandival and stuff. So there's been a lot of instances where people have crossed the line or done too much and they don't face the same consequences. And like I said, I don't know if it is because Kenya is black or if it's just people don't like her down at the network, but it is a inconsistency with the way that they divvy out punishments for people, especially if you're not well liked. So another question was, why don't you promote your salon more? It needs to be in our faces every time I get on social media. And Kenya basically said she was overwhelmed, that like she put all this money into this salon and she was just fearful of like shelling out more money to people and them not delivering. She also talks about before this incident happened at her salon, she had like a 4.9 Google review, but now it's going down to I think like a 4.3 because people are like review bombing it because they're mad at her actions. And Kenya was like, you can be mad at me all you want, but don't try to knock off my business. And I mean, I agree, but I also feel like, Kenya, you put yourself in the line of fire when you did what you did. Still don't agree with people doing that, but it's like you opened up yourself to that. So that was what I think. The last one is, do you have any upcoming movie projects coming up? And she basically says, she keeps things close to her chest. You'll know after she gets confirmation of things. So she was like, I don't even announce when I'm in movies until I see the movie and I see myself in it. So she did say that she does have things coming up with her in Brooklyn, but like, she's like, stay tuned. And then that's where pretty much the video ends, and she tells the people to subscribe to her, and she was like, twirl on that. So like I said early on, I do think this should be Kenya's last video. I want her to be quiet. I want her to let the season play out. Let people come to their own conclusions about Brit in this situation, because at this point, you're not going to change people's minds. Right now, the best thing for you is to not even add any 2 cents so that Brit can flounder on her own. I don't know, she might redeem herself, she might not, but you adding in your 2 cents might make her more redeemable, you know what I'm saying? But I do think if they don't invite Kenya to the reunion, hopefully she'll do another confessionals where she'll address what Brit is saying, but I just want her to use her platform now to promote herself, to promote Brooklyn in that book, to promote the salon, and just go on about your business. Like, I do think Kenya will probably be back for season 17, especially if the ratings aren't good and people aren't feeling the show. But right now, silence, I think, is the best thing for Kenya. But that's all I got. Those were my opinions. Please drop down in the comments below and share your thoughts. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Like the video and subscribe. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.